All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bree Clark. I'm with Senior Planet, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for our discussion about the sunsetting of the 3G network. Today, we have three speakers who are experts at the intersection of aging and technology to discuss what this shift means for older adults. I'm going to hand it over now to our founder and executive director of Senior Planet from AARP, Tom Camber, to help introduce everyone.
Thank you, Bree. My name is Tom Camber. I'm the Executive Director of Older Adults Technology Services from AARP, and we are the sponsors of Senior Planet. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk about this really important issue. And before we get into the specifics, I want to take a moment and just introduce our two guest speakers who are joining me here today. We have Danielle Aragoni, who is the Director of Livable Communities at AARP. But Danielle, take a minute and just tell people what you do at AARP.
Everyone, and thanks, Tom. I'm really happy to be here and be with you all today. I work with my colleagues here in AARP Government Affairs to lead our advocacy efforts for AARP around issues such as broadband utilities, but also housing, transportation, things like that. We're all about trying to make communities work well for people of all ages.
Excellent. And I'm also joined by Bill Signer, who is from the Carmen Group and has a lot of expertise on this specific issue about 3G technology and the transition that we're all facing together. Bill, can you take a minute and just tell people what you do at Carmen Group?
Sure. Tom, thank you very much. And thank you all for joining today. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I'm, as Tom said, Bill Signer with the Carmen Group, and we represent the Alarm Industry Communications Committee. And basically what that is there are 4 alarm associations out there, and they've all joined together along with a number of the larger alarm companies. And these are burglar, fire alarm companies, as well as companies that monitor you if you're at home and you have a senior citizen or an individual who has a health issue. We monitor you to make sure that you have a contact with emergency services. And they've all band together on issues that have to do with federal advocacy on telecommunications issues. And this is one issue that we've been very, very involved in since late in 2020. And with that, thank you, Tom.
Sure. So I'm going to just take a moment really to set up kind of what we're dealing with here in terms of the broad topic. And then I'm going to ask a couple of questions of Danielle and Bill together. And then we're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A for people here on the call to then enter your questions for the Q&A part as well. So you'll all have a chance to be involved and get your specific questions answered. And I would also encourage people that are at home to take out a pencil and a piece of paper, because we may be giving out a few website addresses and the names of some programs and things. And it's helpful for people to be able to jot a note or two. So feel free to grab that paper now. And, I'll talk just briefly about how this came to be right now. OATS and Senior Planet, our job is to help demystify technology for older people and help everybody use technology in an informed manner and in a way that improves their lives. And so we teach classes at Senior Planet every single day online, and also, in person at centers around the country when that's possible. And people come to us for a lot of basic questions around what is an iPad or a tablet, or how do you get on the internet from home, or what is Zoom and things like that. And when one of the features that comes up a lot is wireless technology, is really what people think of as your cell phone or your smartphone, but it's not just the phones. It's alarm systems from your home. It's your car can communicate wirelessly. Your personal emergency response systems, things like that. They use what they call wireless technologies, and those technologies change over time. They become better and faster and have more capacity. So people may remember smartphones or cell phones from 10 or 20 years ago, which might have been as big as a brick and didn't do all that much in terms of aside from just make a phone call. And today you can have a smartphone in your pocket that is much more powerful and has a better interface and can do more. But as part of those advances and transitions, of course, new technology gets introduced and old technology is taken off the market. They call it sunsetting. And so in the telecommunications industry, there are different what they call protocols or different systems of cellular communications. And the most recent one that many people have heard about is called 5G. And the G stands for generation. It means the 5th generation of cellular connections. And those are becoming the standard around the country. And they have to operate on spectrum that allows them to have the airwaves to be able to connect to your devices and connect you to the internet. And so as we've expanded that 5G technology, the federal government is allowing the telecommunications companies to decommission or take out of operation the old technologies that are no longer the most useful ones for the future. And the one that we're looking to end now that's being taken off the system is called 3G. It's the third generation of cellular technologies. And I was unaware of this myself until late last year when somebody called and said, do you want to talk about 3G technologies and the sunset and what that might mean? And so I began doing some research and connecting with the folks at AARP who help us with all of our advocacy and our information around these issues. And I was made aware that this is a potentially very serious challenge for people around the country who may be facing some real issues that we have to raise awareness about. So Senior Planet and AARP are doing a campaign right now, working together with folks like Bill to raise awareness and get everybody to know what's going on and what you can do about it. So I'm going to turn now to Danielle, and I'm going to ask her to take a minute and talk to us a little bit about what's the most important thing that people need to know about this transition. Why are we so concerned about it?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for people to realize is that the service that you rely on to operate your older phones or your home alarm systems or your personal medical equipment, it could fail as soon as February 22nd. That's when the first of these 3G sunsets are scheduled to occur. That includes products that are known as personal emergency response systems and go by the names of Medical Alert or Life Alert or Fall Monitor. It also extends, though, to connected features in your car, like the vehicle SOS systems that you may have in newer models, or even older tablets that you have that rely on 3G networks. It sounds dramatic because it really is. I mean, it's really important that people take steps now to ensure that your device will function once the 3G network goes away. And sadly, it's not as easy as just picking up your carton of milk and looking at that sell-by date. It's not going to be as clearly marked on any of the devices that you have. It takes action. It requires folks to take steps to really understand what can be done and what the providers or security providers are doing about this. As a rule of thumb, assume that any device that you have or purchased before 2019 could be impacted. But really, it really is an opportunity for us all to think about the ways that wireless and connected devices play a critically important part of our lives.
Thank you, Danielle. Also, can you tell me a little bit about what AARP is doing about this, and what resources do they have that people can or what resources should people try to take advantage of that are available to us?
Thanks. Yeah. Well, first of all, we do things like this where we partner with our colleagues there in Oates to get the word out, as well as through our state offices. We try to beat the drum and let people know about this issue through our website. We have some great articles and resources posted to our main website at aarp.org. So you can go there to learn more. You'll find out more about the 3G sunset there, but you'll also find out information about how to make internet more affordable to you. There are a number of programs out there now that could be helpful. Our partners in Oates, as you're hearing about, have some really wonderful resources to help older adults make full use of technology too, and to troubleshoot issues that might arise in the transition away from 3G. So I'll recommend the website seniorplanet.org/3G. That's seniorplanet, all one word, .org/3G. And it isn't just AARP that's here to help. Providers might be offering deals to upgrade devices, so be sure that you ask that question when you go to them. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the important role of the federal government here. FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, and they have a raft of resources on their website as well. This website's real easy to remember. It's fcc.gov. And go there and then click on the Consumers tab, and you'll find a lot of information about how to make your internet access more affordable and ensure that you don't lose service during the 3G transition.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And I'll just encourage people to keep track of whenever you do those internet the web addresses for to type it in. If it's a nonprofit, usually it ends with .org. So you're going to get seniorplanet.org. And if it's AARP, it's going to be aarp.org. And the federal government is not going to end with an .org. It's going to end with a .gov. So the FCC.gov is the way to type that in. Thank you so much for that, Danielle. Let's go to Bill here. Bill, talk to me a little bit about this Alarm Industry Communication Committee. who is that, and what role are they playing in this, and what are they doing about it?
The Alarm Industry Thank you, Tom. The Alarm Industry Communications Committee is basically a subcommittee of the Monitoring Association. And what it was set up to do is, as I said earlier, do federal advocacy both with Congress and the FCC. And we have gone through these transitions from 1G to 2G to 3G before. So we were aware when this was coming along. We had the 2G transition in which we had 4.5 years, and this transition is a 3-year transition. But when we had the 2G transition, we had 2.5 times fewer units out there. So we felt pretty confident that we had the experience in the past with the transitions and that we could do this. But along came an intervening event. And the intervening event was the pandemic. So the 3 years that we were given were cut short, certainly in 2020, from March on, when seniors certainly did not want us in their homes. And then it was cut short in 2021 because we ran into the microchip shortage. You've all heard about the microchip shortage. People can't get microchips. Well, the radios that are in people's homes to relay alarms for burglar alarms, for fire alarms, if you have a fire, if you have carbon monoxide monitoring, if you have a personal emergency response system for a senior, are all done over radios. And the problem is we can't get microchips to replace those radios. So the industry started trying to create public awareness on this issue starting in 2020. And we reached out to Congress on it. And then we filed a petition before the FCC and asked for a delay. And the FCC has authority because they have authority over public safety. Part of their charge is to maintain public safety and not make sure that no telecommunications policy puts public safety at risk. So that's why we got involved in it. And there are a lot of other groups that are interested in this. You know, many of the seniors have grandchildren. When they go on school buses, those are monitored by 3G. So if there's an intruder on a school bus, or for school buses delayed, or for COVID-19 contact tracing, they're concerned. You have drunk drivers out there. They're monitored on 3G network. You have violent criminals who monitor ankle bracelets, who monitor that way. You have trucks that are monitored that way. So there are a lot of industries out there that are concerned about this. And we're just spearheading it because we filed a petition at the FCC.
Thank you for that. And Bill, I've heard a lot of different conversation about what day the 3G networks are going to turn off, right? I mean, they're not all going to turn off the same day. And there's a little bit of confusion about what date to be concerned about. So can you just tell us, like, when is the first day that any of these networks are going to turn off, and what's going on with the dates?
The first date is February 22nd, less than 3 weeks from now, 3 weeks, in which AT&T will shut down its network. And then you have a March shutdown from T-Mobile. And then at the end of the year, Verizon shuts down its network. And it's very difficult to understand, and you shouldn't try to understand whether you are any one of these specific networks. More important is to contact the provider of your service and ask them, and they can tell you that information.
Okay, so but people should understand it could be as soon as February 22nd, that if you have a 3G device, that might not be working after that date. So yeah. If you're not sure, that's your deadline for getting out there and checking it out, right?
19 days from now.
19 days. That I know what I'm going to do this weekend. So talk to me, just Danielle, let's switch over to you. What's the history here a little bit? Has this happened before?
It has, and as Bill mentioned and Tom mentioned, this is part of a natural evolution of our technology improving, right? We welcome this. This is a good thing. We know that with these changes, our phones become more powerful, our systems become more capable. So we have seen this happen before. We retired the first generation of technology. That was the 1G sunset. We retired the second generation, that was 2G. So all of those networks were shut down in order to build out the 4G network that many of us are using now. As a result of that, service providers have developed programs and resources to help with this transition. So we know how to do this. As Bill pointed out, though, the challenge this time is that we haven't had really a full amount of time in order to make this change due to supply chain issues, due to the pandemic and people's reluctance to have an alarm provider come in and replace their gadget, for example, or their device, for example. So some of those delays are complicating the transition this year. Really, what we are hoping for at ARP is that utilities will extend their time, that they will delay their sunsetting a little bit longer, just so that we have more time, not only for older adults to prepare, but really for all of us to prepare.
Got it. So there's still a little bit of opportunity for the companies to make a somewhat different timeline here, but we're all assuming that it doesn't affect the consumer decision. We've got to get on our information and check things out here. So let me just throw out again, I know that we've mentioned a couple things. First of all, I want to say a lot of people have joined this session in the last 10 minutes or so. So we're up to almost 500 people. I think we're 3 people away from 500. I'll get my friends to join in here and we'll get over 500. That's a great number of people to talk about this, and really highlights how critical and urgent this issue is. But I want to just tell, for people who just joined, I'm here with Bill Signer and Danielle Aragoni. My name is Tom.
You're over 500
Campbell.
now.
We're over 500. Woohoo! We got it. Excellent. You just have to talk about it, and it comes to pass. I'm the director of Senior Planet here. Danielle Aragoni is from AARP, and Bill Signer is from the Karman Group. We're talking about the 3G sunset, which is the ending of 3G wireless service across the country that will be taking place in various dates over the course of this year, starting as early as February 22nd. And we are encouraging anybody who may have a device, and particularly older adults who in many cases have special devices to help them with emergencies in their home, and sometimes tend to have older devices. They've just been around longer to be purchasing things and holding on to them, and are just, may not have the most recent technology in their home or in their desk drawer or in their car. So we're encouraging people to check out and see if they may have 3G devices that need to be upgraded before they stop functioning. Bill and Danielle, just tell kind of, if you were giving advice to your neighbor who happens to be an older person, what does it look like to check this stuff out? How do you check this?
Well, the answer is, unfortunately, the devices that you have are not labeled as to whether they are 3G, 4G, or 5G. And the only way really to know is to call up your provider. And in the case of the alarm companies, you should call your alarm company that you're working with, whether it be a personal emergency response system that's monitoring your health, or it's a burglar or fire alarm system. You should call up that company and they will tell you whether it's a 3G or 4G, and they will help you to exchange it. They are more than willing to do it, as provided that they have the product to do it. Because as I said, there is a microchip shortage, so we're not getting enough radios, but they are trying to reach out to people. Certainly with the PERS, they have product, most of them have product, and they will help you do it. They will send you the equipment, or they'll send somebody out to your home and help you do it, or they'll walk you through over the phone. They can walk you through that way too.
Got it. So it's the provider, not the, if the device is made by some manufacturer, that's not who you call. It's the person that you're paying a monthly or a periodic fee to provide you with a service around the device. That's correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
You'll get the quickest answer that way.
Yeah,
That's great.
I mean, pull out that monthly bill. Whoever is charging you for the alarm service that you provide, that you're receiving, that they're going to be billing you for that, and that's a great way to find out the phone number to get in touch. But again, this doesn't just apply to alarm devices. This also applies to phones and tablets, and really any device that's wireless or connected. So, as a rule of thumb, think about anything that you might have purchased before 2019. It's probably going to need to be replaced. So. Go to the store, talk with the vendor. Again, ask them what sort of incentives and discounts they might have for you to upgrade your device. But do take an expansive view. And I can't underscore enough the importance of the personal emergency response systems. These are the sort of I've fallen and I can't get up devices. They go by a lot of different names. Those truly are lifelines for people. And so we do not want to take any risk that those aren't going to be functioning when you need them to function. So please do. At worst, if worst comes to worst, hit the button. That's one way to get someone's attention. But barring that, you can also look at your monthly bill as a way to get in touch with the provider.
And Diane, Danielle, I'm going to say, not worse comes to worse. Please press the button if you have a personal emergency response system and ask them whether it is a 3G, and they will be happy to help you. No issue.
There you heard
I
it, straight
hadn't-
from the alarm industry.
I hadn't thought about that as an option, but that's right. Well, it'll certainly tell you, first of all, it gives you a chance to test it and make sure it's working even today. But if you press that button and they come on and ask for help, ask you if you need help, that's a great chance to say, I'm testing my device and I want to make sure that it's not going to stop functioning from the 3G transition here. And so that's really important. And I think and I'm going to just make one more comment and then we're going to go to Q&A. So I'm encouraging people to get ready with your questions. Bree on our side here at Senior Planet is organizing the questions for us. But I also just want to say the tricky part about this sort of a transition is everybody's using technology today in some way, shape, or form. I mean, if you're on this Zoom session, you're using technology. So we're all using these systems. And the challenge, of course, is there's a lot of uncertainty, right? There's always stuff that we don't know. There's, none of us know the programming inside these devices or all those details. So we have to think about when it is that there's something to really focus our attention on. And this 3G sunset, what makes it so challenging is how much people just don't know. You can't know exactly whether the device is 3G because, as Bill was saying, it doesn't have a big sticker on it that says only 3G, right? You have to call and find out. And then it's not really clear exactly which devices are affected. Some people have smart devices in their homes or in their garages. And I didn't even think about, Bill was talking about those ankle bracelets that people wear for criminal justice circumstances. And never would have crossed my mind to check one of those and say, how do they connect with the internet? So we've got to really ask ourselves what people are using and to look at that. And the critical reason that we want people to look at it today is just, these are primarily things that people use in emergencies. So they may not tell you when they stop working because you haven't pushed the button, or because that alarm may not be getting the monitoring that it needs to. But if the alarm hasn't gone off, you might not be testing it. So the really important thing here is that people take action and go check those devices and call around and get help there. And just to repeat again, there are some web resources that are available. Senior Planet has a website that we've set up a page called seniorplanet.org/3G. So if you got that pen and paper, write that one down, seniorplanet.org/3G. AARP also on their website has lots of information around these topics that are relevant, aarp.org. And the Federal Communications Commission, which is in Washington, D.C., and oversees all these processes, also has a site up where you can get information at fcc.gov. So those are the basic resources. Let's open it up to questions from the participants here. We've got 540 people on this session today, which is just amazing to see how many people are interested and want to get more information. Let's get our first question.
Tom, can I say two things, please?
Sure.
One, as I indicated, we're looking for some help from the federal government on this issue. So one thing you all could do is call the White House.
There you go.
This is their number, 202-456-1414, and ask, what is the president going to do to make sure that your personal emergency response system is going to work past the end of February? What are they going to do to delay the sunset? That's the first thing. The second thing is, we are looking for some senior citizen who is concerned about this, who's willing to speak to the press. We've been asked by the Wall Street Journal and by several WCBS, national CBS, for a senior citizen who's willing to speak up and say this is a concern. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at signer@Carmen, CARMEN group.com. That's Signer, SIGNER @Carmen, CARMEN group.com. Thanks, Tom.
And yeah, also, can you hold that phone number up again? People
I'd be happy to.
202-456-1414. 202-456-1414. Thank you for that, Bill. And if we call, will President Biden pick up the phone directly? We could just talk to him about this, right?
No, but his staff will get the message, and we've been talking to the National Economic Council and to the Domestic Policy Council, and they are concerned, and they're asking who's interested in this.
Yeah, I think it's great to get people involved and have them calling their representatives and calling the White House as well, and make sure people know that we care about this, right? Great. Let's go to the first question there. Bree, do you have a question you want to feed us?
Yes, I want to thank everyone for their thoughtful questions. We are furiously compiling them. So if we don't get to your question, you still can put it in the chat. We're happy to include that. So the first question I'm going to direct to you, Bill. Since we seem to be dealing with more rapid change, can you give us any rough indication how long 4G will continue to be supported, and or how long will 5G be around before 6G? So is this going to be an ongoing trend?
Good questions. It's our understanding that they probably will keep the 4G for the next decade, through the decade. And we feel fairly confident about that. And then 5G, they'll phase that out. We don't know when. They're just starting to talk about it now. So that's a problem. But I will share with you that every place else in the world, except for Singapore, Australia, and Japan, is continuing their 3G network through this decade, mid this decade, or into the next decade. So if they can do it, why can't we? And they recognize that they're legacy devices and they need to be supported. And mostly it's senior citizens who have those, who are going to be directly impacted.
Great. And Bree, I'll add one comment, just because at Senior Planet, we get a lot of questions around when people should replace any of their devices, because people aren't sure. And I can't tell you how many times we've been at a Senior Planet Center in New York or San Antonio or Palo Alto, and somebody comes in and they say, you know, my laptop's not really working very well. And we open it up and look at it, and it's using some software that was created 15 years ago, and it's not working very well because those old software programs need to be updated, and they do have new systems there that are more reliable and more secure for people. And so these kind of updates that take place are a natural part of the product design and evolution of the technology. And if you've had a piece of technology for 3, 4, 5 years, you should be looking at it and asking, is this becoming more trouble than it's worth? And I should save my files and save my photographs and my information and upgrade to the next generation of something. This 3G and 5G transition piece is part of a thing that's never going to stop with the new devices. We're always going to have new stuff coming in.
Tom, that segues nicely to this next question for you. And I'll make sure I pull it up here. Will this sunset affect the whole country, or more so larger urban areas and cities? Our local Verizon said they had no idea when our area would get 5G.
It does affect the whole country, and the 3G, there are parts around the entire country where 3G is being used. And again, it's impossible to know specifically for one household whether it's affecting their household until they call their service provider. So it could be anybody, and the 5G technologies that are rolling out are being rolled out on a national basis. It's not 100% implemented on every location around the country yet, but it will be. It is the new standard protocol, and everybody should expect to see it where they live.
Tom, a little bit more on that. What AT&T is saying is they're going to cover 22% of the population, and they're going to focus this year on major metropolitan statistical areas. So those are the big cities like New York, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, and then they'll roll it out more in the next year. So it's going to be phased in, but they refuse to tell you exactly where they're going to do it.
Right. And there's no way, and the 3G will be sunsetting all across the country. It will be ending. So there's no guarantee of exactly when or what day, right, but it will be everywhere eventually. So it also, by the way, highlights that there really is this kind of urban and rural divide out there sometimes on the technology. That's important to note. We work a lot with rural areas. One of our Senior Planet centers is in upstate New York, where whenever we talk to people there, they always say we have more cows than people. And the technology infrastructure that's getting built is different, and in many cases is kind of a little bit behind the schedule of when other technology is set up in terms of infrastructure. So people who live in rural areas are going to get different patterns of use and things. And the conversation we're having today about 3G it's really something that everybody equally should be checking on. It shouldn't really affect where you are, but just remember, if you're in a rural area, there's a lot of change, and we can talk about that a little bit at the end of the call if we have a little bit of time about some of these new infrastructure packages that are coming out, what that might mean for people. But let's go to the next question about 3G here.
Happy to. So I think it bears repeating, a lot of folks here are learning about this phenomenon. And so I think we want to make sure we're reiterating sort of what are those action steps. One person wants to make sure they're unclear. How do you test for 3G? How do I know if my device is still using 3G? You said you can go to your provider. Is that my only option, or are there other things to consider?
Danielle, you want to answer one? We haven't heard from you for a few minutes.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I mean, I think there's a few things. First of all, kind of do a mental inventory of what you have, what you use in your life. So if you use that tablet to do FaceTime with your grandkids, if you have an older cell phone that you use to call your friends, those are good places to start. What you can do is you can visit, if you know the provider, you know it's an AT&T phone, even, don't forget the sort of secondary companies like Crickets and others. Just because you don't have the name AT&T, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be subject to changes that are being made by AT&T. There are a number of affiliate companies that are impacted by AT&T's decision. In any case, take those tablets, take those devices to the store of your provider, of your wireless carrier, and ensure that it actually is going to make it through. It's wired and supported to be able to make that transition given the plan that you're currently on. Again, it may require that you change your device. It may require that you change your plan, but the best way to know is to be talking to the company that's supporting that device. And then when you think about the alarms, I mean, I think Bill had a great suggestion, which is, if you need to, push the button on your personal emergency response system to get in touch with someone. You could also look at your monthly bill if you're being billed for those monthly SOS services in your car, or being billed for home security systems. Whatever you're being sort of billed for monitoring purposes, that is a good place to start in terms of calling them, figuring out what support they can provide to you in terms of replacing your device and getting it upgraded so that you can ensure that you're going to have continued service throughout this transition.
That's great, Danielle. It's almost like an inventory process in a way. If you sit down and take out a notepad and think about what are the different places to check, there's the billing, and many people are doing use online banking and online bill paying and things like that digitally. So you'll need to look at your statements over the last couple of months and see if there's bills from anything that looks like it might be a technology company that might be billing you for connections. And then there's also looking around the house, looking in your garage, thinking about your car, check on your car if there's anything in there. If you're an ex-offender who's got an ankle bracelet on, you might want to call and make sure that's going to keep working. Everything that might be connected in any way to those wireless systems, and then start with the providers. And if you want, you can also test it by pushing the button, and that will help you get connected to the people that are providing and ask if they're upgraded. That's great, Danielle. And just to remind people, by the way, because I know we've had a few new people, we're talking about 3G sunsetting, which is third generation wireless technology, which is being phased out and being replaced with the 5th generation 5G technologies, which are the new system that people are going to be using. And there's concern that as those 3G technologies are getting phased out, some people are relying on them for alarms and phones and critical systems, and they're going to stop working. So we're helping people think about how to deal with that today. What's our next question, Bree?
Yes, I have a next question. I want to remind folks that we are recording today's session. So if you joined late or you want to go back to review the material being shared today, this is going to be available on Senior Planet's YouTube channel. Okay, Bill, this question is for you. Do you see any reason to believe that AT&T will make concessions and not shut down its 3G network as planned? This person says that AT&T seems pretty dug in.
I would agree. They seem pretty dug in. I think the only way it's going to happen is if the White House intervenes, like they did with the 5G aviation issue, and tells AT&T that they've got to do something here because people's lives are at risk, their health is at risk. And that, frankly, is dependent upon whether you all make some phone calls to the White House. And we're working on it every day.
And from your estimates, Bill, do you have an estimate of how many alarm systems and cars are still reliant on 3G and need to be upgraded?
Well, alarm systems, we had, as I said, 6 million at the end of 2020. We now are down to about 2 million, and that breaks down to about 1.5 million burglar and fire alarm systems, and about 500 to 600,000 PERS, the personal emergency response systems that monitor your health.
Great.
That's a lot. So, Bree, I wanted to ask a question. I think people might be on people's minds. It hasn't come up yet. Let's talk about money for a minute here. There may be costs to upgrading or situations here in terms of the finances. Can Danielle or you or Bill just comment on, what do we do if, is this going to cost people money, and what should they do about handling the potential increased costs, or what to do about that?
Well, I think one place to start is, again, with your provider. So if you need to upgrade your device, oftentimes wireless providers will give discounts or incentives for you to get a new device, a new, more modern one that's going to be not using 3G, that will be using 4G, 5G. So be sure to ask about discounts and incentives that can help soften the blow of that transition. I'll let Bill speak to the alarm part in terms of the costs there, but I will also say that there's more federal funding now than there has been in the past to help reduce the cost of high-speed internet overall. So with that discount available through the Affordable Connectivity Program, that may help to offset some of the other technological investments that you might need to make this year to make 3G a feature of the past and bring you into the 4G, 5G world.
In terms of the alarm industry, we are a very diverse industry. We have 13,000 alarm companies out there. So you're going to get a different answer from everyone. I will say in the PERS area, many of the PERS providers are doing this at cost or no cost to the consumer. The alarm companies, and it's because it's a relatively easy thing to do for PERS. The alarm companies, some of them are charging, they're charging nominal fees, so it shouldn't be a big effort. And I'm sure that your provider will work with you if you have an issue here.
Great. I do want to also just put a flag on what Danielle was saying. This year, separate from 3G, it's not related to 3G directly, but the federal government has created a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program that provides a subsidy for low-income people and people that are eligible through a variety of different eligibility categories to get a subsidy for their internet access. And that will be saving people across the country. People can save billions of dollars across the whole nation. Individuals can get subsidies of $30, or depending on if they live in tribal lands, higher amounts. And it's the first permanent subsidy out there that's been created by the government to help people afford their internet connectivity. And I can't tell you how many people we work with at Senior Planet who live in lower income areas and struggle to pay that monthly internet bill. And the new federal affordability connectivity program is going to really change their financial situations and help pay those bills so that they're not paying the full cost. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, also on Senior Planet, we have a lot of content around this affordable connectivity program. And that's going to be a thing that a lot of people are going to be using this year to help reduce their internet fees. And if you're changing out an old 3G device, first ask the company if they'll do it for free, or they've got some kind of way to get that to have a cost savings. Sometimes your companies will try to sell you something that's more expensive just because they know they got you on the phone. Don't fall for that until you ask for a full detail about what the price point options are and try to get the device that fits your needs at the best cost. It's not something that should necessarily involve you upgrading or paying more.
Tom, can I jump in on that a little bit? I
Yeah.
really want to drive home the point that when you're talking to your service provider, be sure to ask for the low cost option. They in many cases, they have to make one available or should be making one available, so that if you combine that, and if you're eligible, if you combine that with your affordable connectivity benefit, it may be very possible that you don't spend anything on your monthly high-speed internet. That's sort of the hope for people who, particularly those who are on fixed incomes, who are very limited income, and who qualify according to the categories that Tom described. So again, this really is sort of a golden era, I would say, for support for internet service. I think the pandemic showed all of us just how critical it is. And we first had funding for this kind of a program through the emergency broadband benefit. That is now over. But the Affordable Connectivity Program is taking its place and will be here to stay. So please do avail yourselves of that resource.
I'd also love to. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I think this is a very important point that you and Danielle are making, which is there are cost issues here. And if you are looking to upgrade a phone, these are device issues, but on a phone, Since the 4G network is probably going to be around for another 10 years, and 5G phones are very expensive at this point in time, you should think about whether you want to upgrade from a 3G to a 4G, and then as the 5G costs come down, then switch over later on to a 5G phone.
Great. Thank you for that. And I would also, by the way, just thank Danielle and her team at AARP who've been advocating really to make sure that consumers are protected during all of this. And we're really instrumental in getting those subsidies provided by the federal government to help lower income people. It's just a huge change, and they were really very active, and I applaud the work they did. So thank you guys. Let's go to another question.
All right. So you all are bringing up really great information about, upgrading and moving on to new devices. This is for you, Danielle. How do you dispose of old tablets and cell phones that are now obsolete? Do you have any advice or suggestions for folks?
A great question. I think it's somewhat managed at the local level. So I would encourage you to reach out to your locality to see if there are recycling collection centers. I know I live here in Arlington County, and they're very keen on ensuring that we are able to collect old devices. But I think too, when you're talking with your provider about purchasing that new device, that's a great question to ask to them as well, as can they recycle and repurpose some of the equipment that will be no longer needed in your old device.
Great point. We don't want those batteries in the landfills. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, but be very careful, because if you have an iPad or a phone, you have a lot of information on that. And you don't just want to throw that away, because people could get access to that, and that could create problems for you. So you need to be very careful in doing this.
Yeah, there are these electronic waste recycling programs. In many cases, you can ask, but they're typically certified to make sure that they do secure disposal of the devices. So you make sure that you wouldn't want to put your iPad in the trash and leave it out on the street, because that's got your personal information on it. So find an accredited recycling waste handling firm, or a program in your community. Virtually all the communities that we've looked at have them available for people to dispose of those devices, to keep the batteries and the chemicals out of the landfills as well. Let's get another question.
All right, so I'm about to give you all a list of devices I want to ask of to your knowledge what's affected. Before I ask that, we're getting this question quite a bit. My iPhone says I'm on LTE. Is that 4G? Tom, what about you?
Yeah.
Well, let Bill answer this one. Go ahead, Bill.
That is, the LTE is 4G.
So an LTE device, if somebody's iPhone says LTE, does that mean it will survive the 3G transition as an iPhone or phone?
Yes, it should.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for answering that. And now I want to list off a few commonly asked about devices or resources that people want to make sure they can follow up on. So, will this transition affect garage doors, medical devices, pacemakers, implanted pumps, and hospital equipment?
Wow, they're getting us with some specifics there.
So
yes and no. It depends upon how old the device is. And if the device came out before 2019, maybe 2018, there's a good chance it will affect it.
And from what I'm learning from you all, it sounds like if you're curious or wondering, the next step is to contact that provider and to find out. The best thing you can do is to really find out for yourself, so you have that peace of mind.
That's right. Yeah, the trick is it becomes complicated to try to guess, because, that list that you just read, I could see a scenario where all of those devices or categories of devices could be 3G vulnerable and should be checked. But of course, a garage door opener might seem like it's usually just a simple, connection between the button and the door, but there may be some that actually do have some kind of wireless connection that we've never heard about. So I wouldn't want to have to make that guess for you in your home. I would just double check it. It only takes 5 minutes to make that phone call. But that list you just read is a pretty good starting point for the kinds of things people should be checking. All of those medical bracelets, any kind of, especially if you've got medical devices on your body that may be connecting with connectivity in different ways, you should double check them with your doctor or the people that are providing those.
And Tom, can you repeat for folks, what's the year, the cutoff that people should be considering for devices that they really need to be focusing on?
Well, it could be as recent as a few years old. The problem, again, you've got we're talking about maybe 200 different manufacturers of different kinds of devices and different formats and cars and homes. And so, you might have something that got created a few years ago that is about to turn off, and you might have a phone that's been going for 10 years that'll stay on. So we can't give you an exact date. If you purchase something within the last, year or two, it's probably going to be okay. If you're the kind of person that wants to have that kind of peace of mind, you can check those as well. But as Bill's saying, anything over, what are you saying, Bill, 2 to 3 years, people should double check it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say anything that's 3 years or older.
3 years or older. So, 20, what are we in 2022 here? So anything 2019 and behind, you should double check it.
Right.
Great, thank you. Bill, this question's for you. If other countries are still going to be using 3G, will this make it impossible for us to interface with them if we are using 5G here in the US?
No, 5G devices will step down to 4G or 3G. That's not a problem.
So they have that concept of backward compatibility versus
Yes,
forward,
yeah.
right? So backward is new devices usually can use the old systems and work, but the old devices can't use the new system. So we'll be able to interact. We'll be able to do calls to people in other countries.
Great, thank you. And so we have a couple of questions from people who want to know, what is PERS? What does PERS stand for?
I caught that one. Bill broke the rule and he used an acronym without saying what it was. And then Danielle came in and gave the correct answer. But let's go back and do it. I'm the acronym cop over here that's trying to make sure we don't give out any letters without saying what they stand for. So Bill, I'm going to give you a chance to correct that one. What is PERS? PERS.
Personal Emergency Response Systems.
And what is a typical format for that to get used? What is it?
Oh, those are used mostly to monitor health and safety of seniors at home. It's the emergency devices that you wear around your neck to summon emergency services.
Yeah, and some people are using them as bracelets now too. They got those buttons, so if you fall, it's a great backup or alternative solution for people who want extra security and a single button that you can push for an emergency.
Great, thank you. Tom, this question's for you. The term wireless is being used quite a bit. Is the term cellular different from that? This person has a Mac computer that can be wireless but not cellular. And they have phone and tablets that are both wireless and cellular. So can you kind of explain those two terms?
Yes, I'm going to try to do this. And Bill's got more technical knowledge than I do, so correct me if I veer off course here. But I used to work with a cellular company that always insisted that we use the term wireless, and there's a lot of confusion about this. There's if you start from people's, the most common term here is mobile or cellular technologies that are connecting people's phones to the telecommunications network so they can make phone calls. There's also anything that's wireless, of course, connects a device to something else wirelessly with a radio transmission. So wireless is a very broad term, but what we're talking about, and so you may have a device in your home that is wireless. My tablet in my home is wireless. It'll connect to my home-based Wi-Fi, but it doesn't have a cellular connection. It won't connect outside of my Wi-Fi. So there's the stuff that connects to your home and goes to the internet. But then what we're talking about here with cellular technologies, 3G and 5G, are mobile technologies that connect to a spectrum that transmits your signal and allows you to use a phone and connect to phone systems, and you can transmit data and phone calling over those systems. So Bill, if you want to refine any of that or correct,
I thought you did a great job.
There's if you talk to engineers, I go to these conferences and you get engineers in there and they'll go to lunch and they'll talk about what qualifies as cellular versus mobile versus, and they've got all these arguments about the terminology. I don't think it's helpful to dig into that too much, but what we're really looking at here are what people refer to as mobile and cellular services.
Great, thank you, Tom. So I want to take this opportunity to remind folks, we are recording today's session. We're sharing a lot of information. If you want to review it later or share it with someone you know, it's going to be available at Senior Planet's YouTube channel. Suzanne has been sharing that in the chat, so you can access that. And Tom, I think this is a good opportunity to kind of go back and give a high-level elevator pitch about 3G. What are those action items? What's happening? What do folks need to do after today's call?
I'm happy to do it. We've got 545 people on this call right now, which is just fantastic. I'm so pleased to see so many people here from the Senior Planet world who are coming to get some information. And I would also encourage you, if you're on this call and you've been getting the information today, to share it with your neighbors, with your family members, your friends. This is one of those moments where public awareness is really important. So to recap, what's going on is we've all heard about this new 5G technology. It's around mobile phones. It's a better, more higher capacity, faster protocol for connecting our phones to phone systems, and it's rolling out across the country. And it uses wireless spectrum. And that, in order to free up the spectrum that they're going to use for the new system, they're going to be shutting down the old system, which is called 3G, and that's the third generation mobile technologies that are from as many as 10 or 15 years ago, but they're now becoming obsolete. And so starting February 22nd, there are planned to be shutdowns of 3G technology systems. And if you're using a device that's only on 3G, those devices may stop working as early as February 22nd. And Bill Signer's here from the Karman Group. They're helping get the awareness out there and do some advocacy around making sure that the public interest is protected and observed and making these transitions. We've got Danielle Aragoni from AARP, where also have been making a lot of effort to help raise awareness and get companies and the government to collaborate a little bit to make sure people are safe. And we're asking people to check your devices. It could be phones, it could be alarm systems, it could be medical devices that you have in your home, it could be in your car. Anything that connects wirelessly to a phone-based system is something you want to call that provider and make sure that it's still going to be operating after February 22nd and that it's going to be ready for this transition when you can call it the 3G sunset. That's what we're kind of using as the package information around this. And I would also, there's a couple of resource locations people can get. There's seniorplanet.org/3G. So seniorplanet.org/3G. There's aarp.org. And there's fcc.gov. That's for the Federal Communications Commission. fcc.gov. All three of those locations are going to have some information about the 3G transition. And we're asking people to check that out and make sure that you're going to be safe as we go through these changes.
Great, thanks, Tom. I think we've reached the point where we want to give our guests here some concluding thoughts, unless you have any last questions, Tom, that you want to pose to them.
I would say one more thing that's important here. Bill raised an issue earlier that I think is so critical. The human element in all of this is maybe the most important in helping everybody understand the urgency and the consequences of getting everybody on the same page, right? So Bill was encouraging us to call the White House earlier, but one of the things we really need is we need your stories. We really need your stories. And so if you have concerns about this, if you yourself have gone out and replaced a device, or if you've got a device that you're struggling to replace around this and would like to have your story told, we'd love to hear from you so that we can include your voice in the dialogues that we're having with public officials and with others, so that people can understand the sort of the storytelling, the narrative part of this, because the human element is the most important. This is not about the wires and the boxes and the electronic devices. It's about the people. It's about us all having those, working together and being concerned about the consequences or the opportunities to make these changes together. So if you have a story to tell, I'm going to ask Bree maybe to put a note where somebody can send an email or a phone call if they want to call and share their story with us, so that we can start gathering those as well. I'm going to ask for just a quick final comment first from Danielle and then from Bill, and give them a chance to say a couple of words, and then we're going to wrap up. Danielle, why don't you start?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and I'll make a third effort for the stories, or a plea for the stories. Those are incredibly helpful to us. Real quick final thoughts. I would say, again, don't delay on this. We do know that February 22nd is the earliest when these shutdowns could begin to occur. And for things that truly are lifeline products, like those personal emergency response systems or SOS systems in your car, you don't want to risk those not functioning when you really need them. The other thing I would say is, don't let all of this be a deterrent to making technology a bigger part of your life. I know it feels a little scary, it feels a little overwhelming, it feels a little concerning. There are resources there to help. Senior Planet's a great resource There's also financial resources to help, particularly with the monthly internet expenses through the Affordable Connectivity Program. So we really do know the value of being connected and engaged in this digital world, particularly for older adults. And we want to be able to support you to be able to continue to do that.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And thank you for doing this today. Bill.
I think Danielle makes a good point. Change happens and it's a good thing, and we all support it, and progress is something that we welcome. But here you have to be aware of change and make sure that you are proactive in protecting yourselves. And if you do have old devices that you're concerned about, the health monitoring devices or burglar and fire alarm systems, or you have, for instance, this is my car notification that my car will no longer have connectivity. If you get those things, follow them up, make an effort, because if you don't, you could put yourself at risk. And that's something none of us want to have happen. And we encourage you to be proactive. We also encourage you again to call the White House at 202-456-1414. And I will also reiterate what Danielle and Tom have said. We need your stories. There are papers that are willing and television stations that want to tell your story, but they're looking for a senior that will talk about this. And if we hear that, we'll be able to work with you and get you some publicity on this issue, which is what needs to happen. The problem here is that the carriers, the wireless carriers, have been advertising very heavily that they're going to 5G. They are not telling people that they're disconnecting 3G. And that's
Thank you, Bill, and thanks for your leadership on this. It's just so important. In the 2 minutes that we've got left, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank our guests here, Bill and Danielle, for the amazing information they gave out and the time they took to prepare for this. I want to thank all of the team at Oates and Senior Planet, Suzanne and Bree and the others who worked so hard to make this happen, and DeWitt from AARP, who's helped put together a lot of the information we're using. And for those of you out there, when we do sessions like this, we want to make sure you got what you needed when you came to the session. So if you've got a story to tell, or if you have a comment, you can email us at info@oats.org, info@oats.org. That's probably the easiest way to communicate us a story or an additional question or your comments on how we could do a better job to make sure that when you spend an hour with us, you get what you need out of that hour. We want to make sure we're really giving you a great experience here. So send us your comments, send us your stories and your questions. We're also involved in a lot of press outreach right now. We've been on Fox News and CNN and NPR just in the last week. So we're going to be doing more of these kinds of sessions publicly. So your input really helps us do a great job as we go forward. I want to thank everybody for the help you've given us today, and Bree for organizing this from the production side. And I think that's all we have for the day.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. A reminder to check the chat for the recording link, and we hope to see you at a